This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com.
Alpha Natural Resources. Consistent with its running right process, Alpha is an energy company committed to being a leader in mine safety and an environmental steward. We fuel progress around the world. More information at alphanr.com.
The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. Information at vachamber.com. Virginia hospitals and health systems provide jobs. They support our economy and promote public health. Local hospitals are always open to help people with unexpected health needs. Having a stable healthcare network is vital. Virginia hospitals are our lifeline.
I just received a letter from a student who thanked me for instilling the love of math in him. That's why I teach.
Brought to you by the Virginia Education Association, because a good education is good for everybody.
Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.
Welcome to This Week in Richmond, and a very special welcome to Delegate Lee Ware, Chair of the House Finance Committee, member of the House of Delegates since 1998. Does it seem that long, Lee? You have served well for these years, and from my checking the figures, I believe you rank 15th in seniority among the 100 members.
Well, as a teacher, I can say, David, you have done your homework. That's exactly right, and thank you for the welcome. It's good to be with you again. And as to how long it feels, some days it feels like 18 years, and sometimes it feels like I'm coming fresh to it.
Well, each session is different, so that gives it a bit of freshness, and you know that from your work in academic circles too, that each incoming class and each group of students is different. Our viewers here in Central Virginia know you, but for those around the state, you're from Powhatan.
That's right.
But tell them what other parts of this area that you represent.
Thank you, David. I do represent all of Powhatan County. It's the one that's entire, and then a pretty good slice of northwestern Chesterfield, Midlothian broadly speaking, the western half of Goochland, and the eastern half of Fluvanna counties. That's the 65th House of Delegates district.
Lee, as we were talking, and appreciate your being on, there are so many different commissions. In fact, I was looking on the General Assembly website, and if we took a minute on each of your commissions, we'd run out of time.
Right.
But to focus on some of them, whether it's on tax preferences or whether it's on revenue estimates, that particular organization that you belong to, help our viewers understand where we are revenue-wise and other matters regarding to state finances.
David, as we were talking before we got on air, this is a very complex time financially for our nation, and that reflects in the Commonwealth. There's some really positive signs, and there's signs that are not as positive. And I think it's out of that mix that we often find ourselves in these last few years grappling with how do we responsibly budget for the future. And I will have to say Governor McAuliffe has followed the line of other previous Virginia governors and has been willing to be conservative in his revenue estimate numbers. We did that this past year, coming out of a year where we unexpectedly fell $2.4 billion short of our projections, primarily due to non-withholding taxes that simply did not come in. Again, because of complicated or changes in federal tax policy that then rippled down to Virginia. So we did budget somewhat conservatively this year. We came in with a surplus of just over $500 million, which is very good news. And it flows from being careful and being conservative as we view that going forward. There are good signs. The positive sign is we've seen revenues pick up several percentage points above what we expected in this biennium, which we're coming toward the end of now. And so we see that, and we see that strength, which reflects strength in the private economy. I will tell you, I had the good fortune of hearing our local Federal Reserve president, Mr. Jeffrey Lacker, who spoke to a business group on Friday. And his general diagnosis and analysis, if I understood him properly, was that there are many solid fundamentals in both our regional economy and the American economy, and he certainly gave an indication that he feels it's strong enough to take the most publicized move, which is to raise interest rates for the first time since the Great Recession arrived.
It certainly is an interesting time, and again, hats off to you and your colleagues and to the administration, the executive branch, that you worked out that budget this past session and worked it out so much there weren't any other amendments or vetoes that were sent down in the last part of that. Now the administration certainly is in the process of working on the next budget, and I'm sure from the Finance Committee side, you'll be instrumental in your committee in trying to determine revenues. We'll make sure that our viewers know, and I think most of them do, that in the House of Delegates, there's both a Finance Committee and an Appropriations Committee. Appropriations where the budget comes from, but they rely on the work of the Finance Committee to determine, what are the revenues that they have to operate on.
That's right, David. We, as you rightly say, we do have that division of labor, if you will. Tax policy being established in the House Finance Committee, budget and spending priorities being established through the Appropriations Committee, of course in consultation more broadly. And that is because historically, and this goes back some time now, all budgets originally in Virginia derived from the House. A couple of decades back, the Senate wanted to get in on the action a little bit more directly on that. So their one committee, the Finance Committee, has become an amalgam of both of those tasks, where they control both of those tasks.
We're here in the month of September, and we encourage our viewers to take a look at a couple of the websites that we're going to have up on the screen. One of them is virginiageneralassembly.gov, where they can get all kinds of information. The other one has that same address, except it starts with studies, STUDIES .Virginia. And so as they look at those websites, they'll see all kinds of studies that are occurring. And one of the ones that you're instrumental on is looking at tax preferences. And that's not something new for you to look at,
right?
But it's something you're taking a fresh look at. Tell us some about the work of that particular study committee.
Well, David, again, you framed it well. It is a study that was established a couple of years ago. It's chaired by Jeff McWaters, Senator from Virginia Beach, and has, interestingly, the chairman of each of those money committees that we've just referred to as members, along with a number of other members from across the Commonwealth. And our task has been to review the large number of tax preferences that there are, both tax credits and tax deductions, and see if they still make sense in the years since many of them have been adopted. So we've taken a very deliberative approach to it under Senator McWaters' leadership, and I think we're sort of moving our way steadily, some would say maybe slowly, through the tax preferences that there are for various reasons, and giving them a very careful look to see, do they make sense today, and ought we to reconsider them? And in light of our priorities today, are the things that are more pressing? And I think that is always a healthy thing.
So we encourage our viewers to tune in on that study and other studies. Lee, you also serve on some other key committees: Commerce and Labor, Agriculture, Chesapeake Natural Resources, the Rules Committee. Anything about some of the work of any of those committees you'd want to tell us about?
Well, there's a couple of them. You touch on several that I think have a tremendous importance in the portfolio that's included. Commerce and Labor covers a huge array, as you know, of business-related decisions and labor-related public policy. One of the things that we've heard a great deal about in recent years is energy policy. Obviously, Virginia is affected tremendously by the debate about climate change and the debate about how Virginia should respond, what steps it ought to take. And so that's many of the proposals that deal with that come through the Commerce and Labor Committee of both the House and the Senate. That's been very interesting. And of course, Virginia's coal industry, which has diminished so significantly and has historically been such a backbone of our economy in the western part of the state. That's been a very large part of our conversation.
Another one of those studies that you're on, well, I guess it's a study, it's an ongoing commission, is on civic education.
Yes.
And that's something I know that's near and dear to your heart and to your profession, as well as to others who serve on that. Some of the viewers might be interested about Virginia has a civic education commission. What's it do?
We certainly do, and it's chaired by Rich Anderson, who's a retired Air Force colonel and serves in the House. A former member, Jim Dillard, from the House, also, like myself, was a lifelong government teacher. He taught in Fairfax for decades. I taught in Powhatan primarily for, again, just 32 years, and government and history were my focus. The Commission on Civics Education has as its purpose to enhance the study and the knowledge of Virginia's, particularly Virginia's young people, of our civic processes, which is important. I always quote the Jefferson statement: a nation that expects to be both ignorant and free can expect to have neither of those. You've got to have that kind of knowledge, that engaged civic knowledge, to have an effective republic continue to work. And that's the purpose of that, to provide tools for teachers and encouragement and sort of a focal point for that. There is some cutting edge debate that goes on in that as to where civics education is these days.
In our closing minute, you've served since 1998. As you reflect back on some of those early years and think about what's happening now, what's different? What's the same? What comes to mind?
One obvious difference is that when I came in, we had each morning we had a big bill book on our desks that had a physical copy of every bill.
Right.
And of course, some of them, as you know, are 5, 10, even over 100 pages stuffed in, carefully put into this bill book. Now we have iPads on our desk and refer to those, and I'm sure there are people who wonder when they come in and see us, someone's debating, and yet at the same time many of us are referring to our computer to get the details of that legislation. You know, obviously one difference is when I came in, there was a majority of the other party.
Yes.
In recent years, we've seen more of a majority of the party that I happen to represent. So I think there's been those ebbs and flows, and I think that reflects Virginia's circumstance as a pretty evenly divided state and a swing state in modern parlance.
Delegate Ware, we very much appreciate your being on This Week in Richmond. Your comments have been extremely helpful, and we look forward to having another conversation with you soon.
Thank you, David. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. As we welcome our viewers back, we welcome Delegate Chris Peace. We're delighted to have you here. This time in September, you've just come from one of your commissions meeting on the Commission on Youth. You serve on several others that are keeping you and your colleagues extremely busy here during this year. We've put up on the website when we were talking with Delegate Ware, and we'll have it up again, the studies site. People can go and see the number of studies. They can click on those studies, and they can see, okay, there is another meeting coming up before the session if they want to get in on, again, whether it's Commission on Youth that you chair or any of the other commissions. Since you've just come from that meeting, any comments you want to make about that very heavy agenda you have, and even what was announced at the end of the meeting about going on to next meetings?
Well, David, it's wonderful to be with you as always, and it's great to have the opportunity to share with the people of Virginia the inner workings of their government. We're in session 45 and 60 days every other year, January to February, but the business of the Virginia legislature continues in the off sessions with the commissions, standing committee meetings that you referenced. The studies page link is very interesting and informative, and I encourage people to go and look at that. JLARC, the Joint Legislative Audit and Review Committee, is a fantastic source of information, does wonderful work on behalf of Virginia citizens to analyze the costs and benefits of various new or current programs. A lot of folks talk to us about why does our tax dollar, why do we have to pay so much in taxes? And you can find out where some of those tax dollars are going through some of these studies, through JLARC and other venues. I'm privileged to serve as the chairman of the Virginia Commission on Youth. We are by code authorized to study and make recommendations on public policy that affects the family, from youth to our older citizens in Virginia. And we've had some wonderful results that have come out of the work of the Commission on Youth in just a few years. When I first started, we looked at issues related to truancy and dropout prevention, and you can see in Virginia our numbers are getting better in regards to those two important subjects. We have spent countless hours in child welfare, whether it's foster care reform initiatives or kinship care placement, looking at social services and the community services boards and how they interact and interface with our citizens on behalf of youth and families. Today we had a presentation on early education, early childhood education, which is an initiative in many states. Is being led currently in Virginia by the Lieutenant Governor. The Governor had created a childhood council that is looking at issues related to pre-kindergarten and what is quality pre-K and where are children safe. This past session we actually had a pretty comprehensive bill that transformed a number of the safety elements related to child care and family day homes as a result of a few deaths around the state, which should never happen. I called it the ultimate consumer protection bill. If a parent is going to entrust their child to the care of another based on some anecdotal information or references, that parent should know whether that person is licensed, whether they have had training in child care, and whether their child will return safely to them at the end of the workday. We also know that early education and child care generally are a major part of our economy. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce Blueprint highlights the importance of early childhood education. It can be a very bipartisan issue. We want children to have a great start to their education so they hit the ground running and are ready to learn, but ultimately so that they're ready for the workforce. And that, combined with access to high quality child care, enables so many parents around the Commonwealth to hold jobs, to contribute to their communities, to earn a living, to pursue that American dream. My wife and I are both working parents, and we know the value of high quality child care even in our own lives. And when that is not accessible for Virginians because of cost or because of their geography or their zip code, it can put a tremendous strain on families. And so Virginia Commission on Youth, among other commissions here at the legislature, looks at issues that concern the family, and we look forward to hearing from families of Virginia and the ideas that they have to share with us.
Chris, we jumped right in. I led you right into the Commission on Youth. You've been a guest before, but for some of our new viewers, we want them to know that you're from Hanover, and tell them the other jurisdictions that you represent, too.
Sure. I've had the privilege of representing the 97th District in the House of Delegates since 2006. I'm a native of the center of the universe, Ashland, but I represent about half of Hanover County from 301 east, almost all of King William County, except for the town of West Point, and all of New Kent County. When I first started the legislature, I represented 7 jurisdictions, and in the most recent redistricting consolidated a bit around that core area northeast of the Richmond region. King William is in the Middle Peninsula Planning District Commission. New Kent is in the Richmond Regional Planning District Commission, as is Hanover. So the issues that I'm looking at and the impacts on our citizens really run the gamut from Central Virginia east to Tidewater.
During the regular session, you serve on the Appropriations Committee, certainly an extremely busy and powerful committee, Health, Welfare, and Institutions, and then General Laws, where you're the vice chair. Appropriations has been meeting monthly.
Correct.
You're getting word on revenue and matters of budget, so you have some significant work ahead of you in the work of the budget for the next biennium.
Yeah, absolutely. Our number one constitutional priority is to have a balanced budget. You know, we want to do so in a conservative way to make sure that the core services of government are adequately funded. The big priority coming up in this new session in 2016 will be fully funding the standards of quality. We have a re-benchmarking year for K through 12 education. You know, here we are today. It's the first day of school, back to school. All the parents are busy getting their kids to school. Teachers are there educating. It's such a valuable opportunity for folks. We want to make sure we have the highest quality educational system in the country. And so we'll be looking, among other things, funding education. Being on appropriations, you get to learn a lot more about state government than maybe on any other committee, because you see where the money goes. And what do they always say? Follow the money. You do learn a lot, and I hope that's been a benefit to my district. Serve as the chairman of the subcommittee on transportation. Transportation issues and infrastructure needs will always be with us, but we've made great progress in the last few years. I know in our district, motorists will see the improvements on 360 when you come into Mechanicsville, a roundabout project about to start in New Kent, and some other maintenance and new construction initiatives. General Laws, as you know, David, is a little bit of everything from FOIA and procurement to ABC to housing. I'm the chairman of the housing subcommittee there and do serve as vice chairman. So I'm plenty busy, but it's a wonderful opportunity to learn about all the various aspects of state government so that I can be a better representative for our district.
And serving on the Health Committee and then on the special joint committee on health care. Health care is bound to be another hot issue again in the next session, as has been in the past. Anything coming out of the Joint Commission that's pointing some directions, or some things are going to be worked out on different matters?
Yeah, certainly health reform has been a hot button issue over the last several years since the Federal Health Reform Act was passed, and the questions about its implementation, starting with the Supreme Court ruling, and then how Virginia would react, whether we form our own health exchange, whether we expand Medicaid. Obviously, the House position has been to do neither. That question will continue. Imagine Governor McAuliffe will again push for Medicaid expansion in his introduced budget, which we'll receive a copy of in December. We received a very rosy economic report from him as a House Appropriations and Senate Finance committees met last month. It happened to be the week after the stock markets, nearly hit bottom or had that great correction, and many of us were wondering which economy the governor was referring to. But we hope that Virginia continues to be on the upswing, and that growth and job creations are occurring across the Commonwealth. That obviously will have a positive impact on our revenue stream to address many of these issues. The number one issue I believe our HWI committee will address is COPN reform, Certificate of Public Need process, which requires state authorization for certain capital projects or expansions that hospital systems may want to pursue. In our district in New Kent, I've been working to lead an effort to hopefully successfully achieve approval on a COPN request by HCA, where they want to build a new standalone ER in New Kent. And they've asked for approval for MRI and CT imaging services. The initial staff recommendation by the Department of Health was negative, saying there is one already in the planning district, or there are sufficient a number in the planning district. The closest being Chesterfield. If you live in New Kent or in Lenexa in New Kent, I can tell you it's a long way to Chesterfield. So we're working right now to see that the state health department will ultimately approve this request. Access to quality care, particularly in the rural areas, is very important. I say New Kent doesn't even have a patient first. So if you're a family that is living there or you want to relocate to New Kent, you want to make sure you have access to good health care.
Dr. Peace, our time has run out. We look forward to having another conversation with you very soon.
I
Thanks
look forward
for
to
being
it.
on.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com.
Alpha Natural Resources, a leader in mine safety and an environmental steward.
The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community. For jobs, the economy, and public health, Virginia Hospitals, our lifeline.
The Virginia Education Association, because a good education is good for everybody.
Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.